Hi, welcome back to another episode on Noah's Ark, and this video is part of the Thinking Inside the Box series. So today we're going to talk about this classic track by 10cc called I'm Not in Love, and we're going to try to recreate these tape loop vocals that they were able to create back in the days and see how they did it in 1975. So this classic track by 10cc is part of the album called The Original Soundtrack, released in 1975. And so there were two kind of songwriting groups in the band. And this song was written by Eric Stewart and Green Goldman. And the other two members, Lowell Cream and Kevin Godley, were working on Une Nuit à Paris, which is kind of an opera with like three movements type track. So the band recorded an initial version, I believe, in kind of like a bossa nova style, and they weren't really satisfied with that version. So they thought, how can we make it, more interesting and kind of strike a chord in our listeners' ears? So what they came up with was this brilliant idea of having tape loops with a vocal ahs on them and create actually 13 tape loops with all the notes, the chromatic notes of the scale, so that they could actually, write the faders on the console and recreate notes and chords by playing the console as an instrument, as a synthesizer kind of. So that process was really tedious because back in the 70s, obviously you were working with tape machines, and usually when you have a tape machine like this one, the tape loops around the reels or the spools, and if you want to do a tape loop, you need to go the other way around actually, and you put two stands so that the tape can go around those stands. That was kind of a tedious process, but that's not it. They actually recorded 624 total voices, and why is that? So basically they put a mic and they had three of the band members sing ahs, and so they had a 16-track machine. So they decided, okay, let's do 16 tape of that same note, that same ah, with three people. So that makes already 16 times 3, right? But they had to repeat that process for all the notes on the chromatic scale, so times 13. And so that apparently took them months and months of recording just the voices. And so when they came up with that kind of vocal synthesizer, what they also did is that they put a masking tape at the bottom of the faders on the console so that they couldn't actually turn the faders all the way down. And so when you can hear a bit of all the notes, it creates this kind of noise. It's kind of a pleasant sound, and that's the sound you hear at the beginning of the track, So what I wanted to do is show you guys how you can do that yourself and, much more easily with today's technology. So what I tried to do is still, trying to manually recreate the synthesizer with my own voice. So what I did is I put a mic and recorded 12 takes with different positions around the mic to simulate kind of different people. And so 12 takes for one note. So I did that 13 times. So basically I had 12 times 13 voices. And I put all those 12 voices into one. I summed them into one note. And then, I created those 13 notes. And so when you actually, push the faders in and things, you can create the chords. So for instance, for an A chord, you can push, the A, C sharp, E notes, and then create interesting musical triads. So let me show you how I did that. And let's start by recording the vocals first, and then we're gonna go into the box and try to recreate the track afterwards. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you how I edited and processed the vocals in the box in Pro Tools, and see how I combined all those vocal takes into the playable vocal synth, let's call it. So first of all, I had to organize all the vocal takes, and so what I did is that I recorded all the different notes into playlists. So here you can see, for example, for the low E note, I've got 12 takes, and these are all the individual recordings. So as you can see, they're all different. And so what I had to do is I had to sum all these 12 takes into one mono file. And so I've done that for all the notes. And so this is what you can see under. So let me hide this for now. And so here you've got all the 13 notes. So when you play all the notes, all the chromatic notes at the same time, you get that, background noise we're talking about. Let me play it to you. It sounds like this. So it kind of sounds dissonant at the moment because everything is playing at the same time. But let me play you the individual notes now. Now, what we want to do is create chords with these notes. So, by accentuating a certain faders, you can create the chords that you want. Unfortunately, I don't have a fader workstation or control surface, and like an Avid Artist Mix or stuff like that. So I can't really write the faders. But what I need to do then is, create manual automation in Pro Tools to mimic what they did on the track. Obviously, the segment that I recorded is a couple seconds for the vocals, so I had to elongate that. And what I did is that I took the initial, take and duplicated a couple of times and crossfaded in between to make it as though it's like an infinite track, because obviously what they had was an infinite tape loop. So here in Pro Tools, I've created some groups to be able to identify the chords and move only the groove faders at a time to create the chord that I wanted. So after listening a bit carefully at the beginning, I believe the chord they're playing is B sus4. So I created a group with B sus4 notes, which is F sharp, B, and the top E with an inversion. So this is what it sounds like, and it sounds much more pleasant and harmonic than all of the notes at the same level. Check it out. Almost has this like ethereal kind of angel voice type of sound. Really sounds great. On top of this, I added the other instruments to kind of recreate the track. And so what I did first is add a kick drum, and the kick drum is pretty simple. I took a sample from a kick drum I recorded before, and it's really dry and punchy. On the actual track, however, they used a Moog synthesizer to do the kick drum note. They just used a really low bass note to recreate kind of a kick-like texture. Now, I added obviously the Rhodes, and the Rhodes in this case is just a Waves plugin. I think this one sounds really good, and I added some tremolo, some phaser, and some chorus because I believe in the track you can hear a bit of those effects. And the Rhodes is panned on the left, but I've got a delay sent on the opposite right side, and the delay is I believe 1/16 of a note. I think on the track you can hear kind of a delay that pings on the other side, so that's why I added that. And then there's a guitar DI actually on the original, and it's said to be a Gibson DI 335. So obviously I don't have a 335. I use the SG because it probably has the similar or same pickup. Obviously the body is different because the other one is hollow or semi-hollow, but I wanted to use at least something that was a bit close Gibson humbuckers. So that's the DI. I plugged it straight into the Apollo and used the UAD Helios Unison plugin, and actually it sounded completely different from the recording. So I had to really process it to make it close to that percussive sound, because on the actual recording, it's not even melodic. You don't really hear the chords. It's just like really like a kind of a shaker percussion quality. So what I had to do is I had to boost a 10K a lot and filter out a lot of frequencies. So I filtered everything below 8K and everything above 12, and then really accentuated the 10K because that felt like it sounded closer to what's on the recording. And then I compressed the hell out of the guitar with an 1176, and it sounds like this then. So really thin sounding, you know, it doesn't sound great, but you know, that's how it is on the record. So I tried to replicate that. And then so when you add all the instruments together, it sounds like this. So that's pretty close to the beginning, I'd say. And now let's do the automation to get those different chords and replicate the track. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you really enjoyed this this recreation of 10cc's classic track. And if you like this video, please, you know, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and please make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel. And if you want to be notified, obviously you can hit the bell button. And if you want to check out my Patreon page, you know, I'm going to put a link below, and I would really appreciate if you could, you know, visit the Patreon and support me if you can. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.